Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits and welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I'm coming to you from my new but still under organization studio space. We are adding on to our home here in Sacramento. We are going out the back of the lot. I am going to be in this new room that is bigger than my old room, but I'm currently in this new room with some storage items that aren't mine, and I don't have my stuff in the closet, so there's a lot of storage items that are mine that are out in the space with me. So it's been a little frustrating. It's going to continue to be a little stressful because they tell you 4 months, but it's probably going to be 8 months. But I'm keeping my eye on the end goal. It's going to be amazing. So in the meantime, I have been using Archival Ink Pads and some fun foam stamps to add some embellishment to my mixed media rice papers. These make great backgrounds for collages, for paintings, for drawings, and I love the rice papers as they are, but I like the idea of adding some elements to sort of make each one a little different. So if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. So today I am here to explore and play a little bit more with my mixed media backgrounds rice papers produced by Joggles. So I'm going to be using three different colors of Archival Ink Pads. And what I love about these Archival Ink Pads by Ranger is that they're acid-free, permanent, and waterproof. So they're not going to fade in your artwork. You can paint over them with wet media and they're not going to smear or smudge. And they are archival, so they're not going to fade. So when I use stamp pads in my artwork, I make sure that I use archival stamp pads. Now I'll use playful, fun materials when I'm making cards or working in my sketchbook, but when I'm making artwork, I want to make sure that everything is permanent and fade proof. And speaking of that, the rice papers, the mixed media rice papers by Joggles are also fade proof, and they are printed in Italy on really nice quality 30 GSM rice paper with some fibers in it, and they glue down beautifully because the rice paper is so highly absorbent. Today I'm using two stamps that were designed by Barb from Joggles, and I believe this one is called Wonky Border and this one is called Blossom. I will give you links to all the products down below the video, so if I call them something that they're not, I promise you I'll get you the link that works. Okay, so as far as the rice papers go, these are mixed media backgrounds that I created with vintage ephemera, and I put them together to be printed on this rice paper, so you don't have to try and source all these old papers, but you're going to get the same effect. And I use these often for backgrounds of birds, flowers, and various other subject matter. So they're all called mixed media, and this is number 1. This is the one with the green Abraham Lincoln stamps. That's number 1. This one with the addressed envelope and the stamps around the edges with a nice kind of restful space in the middle. This is number 4. This one with some great old typewriter text and some canceled stamps and more address envelopes, some maps. 1960, this one is number 5. This one has a little bit of a kind of a neat sheen to it. That was an effect that I created by painting over the ephemera background. It's not going to give you the same effect as the interference did in the original piece, but you can definitely see where the tone of this one is a little like you're looking through slightly cloudy, a little bit different from that one. So this one's got like a treatment on the top of it in the paper itself, and this is number 3. This one is really cool because on top of the ephemera, I spread crackle paste and then I stained it to go along with this vintage look. So you have the ephemera, but you also have the very dimensional crackle paste application. This is number 2. And this one I did slices about 1 inch wide of 2 or 3 different sheets of ephemera and alternated them. So this has a sort of a striped alternated look. And this one is number 6. All right, so the ink pads that I'm using, and again, I'm going to list these below, but this one is Pebble Beach. This one is Goldenrod, and this one is Monarch Orange. Now, I'm kind of concerned that Monarch Orange might be a little bright. It's not a super bright orange, but I am looking for kind of neutrals that are going to go with the background papers. So we'll test these on a sheet of printer paper. Actually, we will test these on a sheet of Joggles printable rice paper. So the same paper, exactly the same paper that these are printed in Italy on, is also available from Joggles blank, and it will go through your printer. That's why it's called printable rice paper. So we'll stamp on this paper so that we get a feel for how the ink pads are going to react with the rice paper. Okay, so the first one is Goldenrod. And I'm going to put that on the wonky border, and we're just going to see what the color is and if we think it's going to work with the rice papers. So I always like to do this, do a little test of colors before I go ahead and stamp right onto the rice papers. So that's the Goldenrod and the wonky border. And that's a really nice color for some of these backgrounds. You can see it's going to go really nice with this, and probably even nice with that, since these are all kind of in that yellow tone. The second thing I want to show you is sometimes I'll stamp off the first and I'll come back and do the second print where I get a lighter, paler, kind of less intense print. And sometimes that's good when you're building a background and you want this stuff to be subtle. One thing you need to know about the Archival ink pads is that they are oil-based. So we do need to clean that first color off, and I've got paper towels with soap on them. We need to clean that first color off because it will reactivate. It doesn't dry really, and it will reactivate. So when we put it in the orange, we're going to get Goldenrod mixing in with that. And we definitely don't want that to happen when we're going to be using the Pebble Beach, which is super neutral. So I just hit it with paper towel with soap. I'm not a big fan of baby wipes because they're not biodegradable. I know everybody loves the convenience of them, but I try to be a little bit environmentally conscious. And since they're not biodegradable and paper towels are, I've just added a little water and soap to a couple of paper towels, and they're going to work fine to clean the surface of this stamp so that I can switch colors without them mixing and blending. Now, when they do mix and blend, it can create some great colors. But if we really want to evaluate this orange to make sure that it's going to work, we want to make sure we know the color that it is going to actually be. So I'm going to come in now and ink up the blossom stamp with the Monarch Orange. Now, rather than trying to put the stamp into the ink pad, because there's obviously a size difference here, you saw that I used the ink pad and I just dab it over the whole surface of the stamp. That works really well for anything that's not little enough to fit in the ink pad itself. You can buy a really large archival ink pad, an oversized one, if you feel like you want to be able to put the stamp into the pad, but I feel like these work just as well. So here's our Monarch Orange. Ooh, and that is not a bright orange, is it? It's almost like a burnt sienna. That is a nice color. I was a little worried about this, thinking it was going to be bright, but no, that is a nice kind of neutral, and the second print is really nice with that and the third print. So you can see if you want it to be subtle, print off onto a clean sheet of paper and then hit your second or third print on your background. So that's looking great. I'm going to clean that off with my soapy paper towel. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Just give it a little rub. And then I've got a second dry paper towel that I'm just getting the soap off and the moisture off. And we're good to go for the next color. Okay, so I'm going to get another sheet of the printable rice paper. I can certainly use this as a layer to gel print for collage papers because, again, that's archival, permanent, fade-proof ink. So let's try the Pebble Beach now. This is the color that we haven't used that I thought would really go well with this one because it sort of has a grayish tone, whereas this one really has more of a warm tone. You can see this has a cooler gray tone. So I thought the Pebble Beach would really look great on this one. So let's see how dark this gray is. It looks very light on the cover, but sometimes that can be deceiving. So let's have a look. We'll stamp this. It is a nice greenish gray. It is darker than the cover, but of course we're going to get our second and third stamp where we can get it lighter. That's a very nice greenish gray, which I think will really accent this paper nicely without being too bold or busy. The idea is to kind of just add some elements to the mixed media rice paper background so that you can kind of call them your own and incorporate them into your work as a background. So now that I know that all of these colors are great, these are warm and they're going to go with the papers that are more yellow tone. And this is cool and it's going to go with the paper that's more greenish gray tone. So I'm going to take two different papers here. So I'm going to go with the cool gray one and the warm one. And I'm going to use this sheet to do my first stamp so I can go in here with a lighter, kind of more subtle second stamp. So for this one, let's put the blossom stamp. Let's try the goldenrod first, and we'll see if that stands up, because this one is a lot of gold tones, so this will probably be kind of subtle. But we want it to be subtle. We don't want the graphics that are stamped in the background and the background to overpower your subject. So let's stamp that first stamp of the goldenrod on the blossom stamp off onto here. And then let's put the second stamp right onto the rice paper. And you can see that is a nice subtle pattern with a very complementary color to this background. So now I'm going to run it off the edge for that second, that technically the third stamp. It's pretty light now, but let's try it up here. And we're just getting a real subtle print of it. Very subtle. It shows up in the lightest area. But that's creating a nice pattern back there without being too bold. So that is the goldenrod. So let's see. Let's come back in with the orange, the Monarch, on the wonky border. And we'll put that along the edge. Now I'm going to put part of this paper on an 8x8 board. So I'm just going to stamp, and then I'm going to find the part of the paper that I like the best for the background. So the wonky border, I'm going to put that right here. And you can always run these stamps off the edge of the paper. Oh, I didn't do my first stamp to make it more subtle, but that's not too bad, especially if I run it off. But here's the second stamp. And I just think that that's a little bit, more subtle, but you know what? That's kind of cool. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of bold. So I'm just randomly stamping here and not really curating where the stamps are going to be on the paper on the board. And you might want to do that unless you're going to use stamps and paper for other applications. And there's plenty of things you can use these mixed media background papers for. But if I'm going to put it on this 8x8, I might want to get my paper lined up and see how that's going to work. That little bit up in the corner is actually rather nice, and I can line up here so that runs off and it's even a smaller amount in the corner, and that's actually really nice. The other thing that I like is this one being so soft, and I could put a bird or a flower subject kind of off to the left on this one. This might be a little bold, and that was the second print. So let's grab another sheet of that same paper and try and go a little softer. So you can stamp the whole paper and then line it up on the board, or we could put the paper on the board first and decide where we want our stamps to be. So, and we could also decide where we want the paper, what part of the paper we want on this 8x8 board. So if I put it here, right here in the middle, then I can go in again with the goldenrod And I'm just going to loosely put this here so I can get a better idea of composition. But I'm going to put my goldenrod, I'm going to stamp it off onto the rice paper sheet. Then I'm going to come in and I want to run it right off the corner here, off the top corner. Wow, I really like that because that's giving me kind of the element out towards the edge, and I can put my bird or my flower in the middle, and this is sort of off to the edge. So I put that there, and then I can come in and do another one further off, and this will be the third stamping, so it's going to be a little more subtle, but wow, that's really nice too. I also like the fact that we can see through the archival ink pad. We're seeing right through that to see the text in the background. It's not opaque, it's translucent. So I really like that. And now we're going to come in with the, make sure you put the right lids on these so you know which color is which. So now we're going to come in with the Monarch Orange. And this time, I'll try to remember to stamp it off first so I can get it a little bit more subtle. So we're going to do a print here on the paper first. And then we're going to come, I'm going to come right down the bottom here, but let it go off the edge and put it right here. That's really nice. And then I'm going to extend it. I'm going to put this over here and go off the bottom like that. So now I've got a real interesting pattern for a background with this mixed media rice paper. And I will apply that right to this cradled panel. And I will have a beautiful background for a small collage in the middle. So now let's look at the number 6, which is a lot more gray and a cool tone. So again, I'm going to put my printable rice paper out to the side here. You can use a scrap sheet. I'm just using this rice paper to see how the ink is going to work on the very same paper that this is. And then also, after we're done here, I'm going to gel print on this or leave it like this and use it as collage paper. So we're going to now use the Pebble Beach color. And I have to make sure that I clean. Definitely want to get that Monarch Orange out of here. We don't want warm. I'm going for that cool tone of the Pebble Beach. So I'm going to get that off. Probably could use another paper towel. I'm going to squeeze it to get down into the grooves. Get everything out of the low parts. We're just going to squeeze it. That's what's nice about the foam. And then the same with the blossom. To get the soap out, and I'm going to lay this paper down where I think I would put it on the board. So I think I'm going to go like this with this one, and I'm going to grab the Pebble Beach and I'm going to apply it to the blossom stamp first. Then I'm going to take my cleanup sheet and put the first print on there. So that's the first dark print, very dark. And then I'm going to come in here and run this off the edge. I'm going to press a little more lightly, and I know that I've got my second stamp. So look at how nice and subtle that is on there. The translucency is wonderful. You can see right through it, and it's not too dark. So now I'm going to put another one off to the edge here. And again, subtle, but adding some elements to the background that kind of switch it up and give it a little bit more something. So then we'll come in with the wonky border. And aren't these great designs? These are both designed by Barb from Joggles. I have fun playing with them. So again, I'm going to press that off onto the first sheet. You can see that the orange, I didn't do a completely good job of getting the orange out of it because it's tinting my green-gray kind of warm. So, I mean, if you're a purist, this one you can tell has got a little bit of warm in it too. So, if you're really a purist, take them to the sink. All right, so the first stamp to get the darkest print on the paper, there we go. No more orange in that. You can certainly see the difference now between that, which is very warm, and this, which is back to green, okay? So that's the first print. So now I'm going to run this off the top corner with the second print. I really like that. Really like that. Nice and subtle. And we got the benefit of this top fun bendy part right there. So I think I'll put a little bit of that sort of here, or I'll just put a little bit more there. And I'll press down here. This one should be pretty light. Yep, very light. Okay. So now I have this fun kind of elements added to the mixed media rice paper. I don't know which one is my favorite, the warm one or the cool one. So that's really pretty warm. And is that the one? Or did we do this one on the board? Now I can't remember. So this one, both of them are nice. But there we go. So I can't decide which one's my favorite, but I will show you how to put it on the board. So we're going to take some gel medium, pretty simple. You want to put it a decent amount, and you want to make sure you get right out to the corners and the edges especially. The corners and the edges so that it doesn't curl up and peel. And sometimes we don't get enough out to the corners. So focus on the corners, 4 corners, and the edges. And it's better to put out too much than too little. You want to get really good coverage. Then I'm just going to grab an old hotel room key to spread everything flat. But like I said, this rice paper is really, really nice. It is highly absorbent, so it glues down really nice. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to line that up with the edge or however you want it. And then I'm just going to take the room key to push the glue out from the center to all sides. So you wait for it to dry, and then you flip it upside down, and you take a brand new X-Acto blade and cut it along the edges, trim it, and then you have this wonderful embellished mixed media rice paper background with some fun, funky stamping, and sets the stage for a wonderful bird or floral subject up the middle, or this way, or that way, or this way. So there you have it. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. All the links to the products are going to be below the video in the expanded description box. Consider supporting me on Patreon. It is really the cornerstone of my ability to continue to be a full-time fine artist. It is a month-to-month subscription. You can come and go in 30-day increments, so give it a look and see if it's for you. It is full of multi-part, full-length, in-depth tutorials, content that has been published every week going all the way back to May of 2020 is immediately available to you, where I take you through a project from start to finish. So think about it, patreon.com/Elizabeth St. Hilaire. Thank you. See you back here next week.